Monday. That's the way you want to start off the week, right? Hello there. Welcome. Disheveled, unprepared, but I am a radio professional, or at least that's what my business card says. Great to have you on this Monday. Appreciate you tuning in, whether you're listening on Extra Sports 1300 or 740 KVOR. Happy to be on VOR as well now. Had our first week. Thought it went pretty well and looking to continue on moving forward to be simulcast on both stations. And regardless of which one you are listening on, you will get a veritable cornucopia of sports topics over the course of this program. And I open things up to you because this is an interactive experience, or at least I want it to be. You hold the key to the other part of that. 719-247-1313 is the number if you want to call or text into the show. Of course, we will start and mostly stay on the NFL side of things because what a weekend it was. Incredibly compelling playoff games, and even just as an aside, throw in the college football. Well, not the Indiana game, but that wasn't surprising, was it? Indiana's just that much better than everyone else. But, I mean, we got out of the 4 straight days of playoff football, we got 3 epic days. And we might be in store for another one tonight with the Steelers and the Texans in that wild card game. You can hear tonight on 740 KVOR. But around these parts, the most important thing was figuring out who the Broncos would end up playing this week, and we now know.
Allen under center. Gets the snap. The push from Gilliam into the end zone. It's a Buffalo touchdown.
Westwood One Sports on the Call, as heard on KVOR yesterday. You had to, I don't want to say worry, but you had to wait until the Sunday night game just to make sure. But I think you probably had the same feeling I did. Once Buffalo beat Jacksonville yesterday morning or yesterday afternoon, by the time the game was over, you're like, yeah, it's going to be Buffalo. But you did have to wait because if the Chargers would have won last night, it would be the Chargers. But it is the Buffalo Bills. And, of course, it's the Buffalo Bills. And I think that's kind of why after that game you felt like, oh, it's going to be Buffalo. Like, forget how you felt about LA's chances that night against New England. Isn't there something fitting? Doesn't it just feel right that the Broncos are playing the Buffalo Bills? Now, I'll just tell you, it's the worst matchup that the Broncos could have gotten. It is. And we'll get into that topic of conversation a little bit later. But it is incredibly fitting that it is the Buffalo Bills. And what this matchup on Saturday, we don't know what time Saturday yet. But when it comes around, there's a little bit of Nuggets-Lakers feeling to this. And I know it's not – the Nuggets and Lakers thing went back many years. In fact, every time that the Nuggets had a promising team, a team that maybe could compete for a championship, whether it was 1985, whether it was the year with Chauncey and Carmelo, or whether it was the bubble, the Lakers at every turn were there to thwart the Denver Nuggets. They ran into that wall multiple times over decades. So when I make the comparison to the Nuggets and Lakers, I know we're talking about a year. But the similarity here is that idea of the Buffalo Bills last year being the team as optimistic and as much highly as you were thinking of the Denver Broncos going into that game. What the Bills showed them last year was you may be this, you're not that. Or you may be that, you're not this. Right? And that's what those Lakers teams, and pick whatever one it was, with Magic, with Kobe, or with LeBron, pick which one you remember most, but it kind of served as the same thing. Like, you may have thought a certain way about the bubble Nuggets, or the 85 Nuggets, or the Carmelo Chauncey Billups Nuggets teams, but they would run into the Lakers and you would come away going, all right, we're not that. The Nuggets aren't that. And now they got to become that. How do they do that? And that was something that Sean Payton said in the postgame press conference after they lost in Buffalo. He was asked the question of whether playing a team and losing to a team like Buffalo kind of shows you how far you have to go.
You're constantly evaluating where you're at, where we need to go. You know, my mind's always thinking about what we still need, maybe what's missing.
And it showed that the Broncos were certainly missing some things, whether those things could come from outside the draft, free agency, or just internal. Right? There's going to be a lot of discussion about Bo Nix and what he is this year compared to last year. Some of the things that maybe the Broncos lacked when they went into Buffalo last year in the wild card round, maybe they got it through experience. Maybe they got it through internal improvement. But that's what makes Sunday or Saturday kind of perfect in a way. It's like, all right, so last year, the Broncos, first time back in the playoffs, what are they? Are they truly a contender, or were they a team that was able to kind of sneak in with that extra wild card spot, and you found that it was the latter, right? That they weren't prepared, they weren't ready, they weren't talented enough to take on one of the big boys on that stage. So the fact that they're going to get the same football team this time around, I do think it is quite fitting. It is quite perfect. And we'll have a very good idea of how much better this Broncos team is. And it's not like this will be the first, like we're all sitting and wondering, and then now that will be the first opportunity. You've seen it throughout the year. Broncos in one-score games last year. Big time problem. Wasn't this year. Historically great in one-score games. That showed you that this year's Broncos team is better than that one. The quality wins that they had, which were few and far between last year. You couldn't cobble together two really good wins for the Broncos. Now this year, you have, the win over Philadelphia is the one that certainly sticks out to me. I think beating Kansas City the first time was a good win. Where they ended up, the fact that they dethroned Kansas City, and I guess the Chargers can kind of say they did the same thing, but being able to win that division that was residing with Kansas City for so long shows that the Denver Broncos are an improved team. So why wouldn't their first round matchup kind of be that next mile marker? Play that team a year ago, and now you get a chance to show how far you have come, how much more ready you are for this moment. And that was going to happen to an extent regardless of the opponent. But because it's this opponent, I think it even more so says that, or gives the Broncos the opportunity to show that. I don't know if a home game against, Pittsburgh next week would have done it quite the way that this will. Because now that, and I've been saying this about Buffalo for months now, that when the playoffs roll around, you'll see who Buffalo is. And I thought yesterday they showed that. They might have been playing with their food a little bit during the regular season, which teams that have reached their level of status, teams that's like, for us, it's Super Bowl or nothing. Like, that's all that matters anymore. Not an excuse, but it's a reality. Right? And you saw this team, especially their quarterback, lock in at a level that you hadn't really even seen Buffalo lock in that often during the season. So this is a bad matchup for Denver. Pretty much everything about Buffalo is something that could give the Broncos problems or potentially negate some of the advantages that they would have over most teams. But it's the perfect matchup because it gives the Broncos the ability just 1 year later to show how much further they've come along. And one thing that is changed about this is the venue, which is something that, again, 1 year ago, Sean Payton talked about.
It's always, especially in the postseason, that's always a bitter pill to swallow, and yet it'll go down, and then it's got to fuel you and light a fire in the direction we need to go. And look, one of the things we learned early on is we got to find a way to play these games at home.
And they will. Because the fact that the Broncos are not going on the road for this game has shown how they are better than the team that had their season ended in Buffalo a year ago. Show how much better they are. Buffalo has to come to them. I really can't think of a more perfect first matchup of these playoffs for the Denver Broncos than Buffalo. And the reward here is, you always wait and see kind of how the game goes because you're allowed to kind of alter the way you think. Your perspective can change on a week-to-week basis. That shows growth in human beings. But as I'm sitting here on Monday, if the Broncos get past this game, I think they will have cleared the biggest hurdle standing between them and the Super Bowl. I think that's what Buffalo signifies. If they can get past Buffalo, what's keeping them from getting to the Super Bowl? But there's a lot keeping Denver from getting past Buffalo, and that's what we will discuss today and moving forward the rest of the week. In the meantime, I'd love your thoughts on the matchup. 719-247-1313. So much more to talk about for Broncos Bills, but also the NFL in general that gave us so much to discuss. And we still have one game left in Wild Card Weekend. Can Mike Tomlin lead the Pittsburgh Steelers past where they have run into some problems, and that being the opening round of the playoffs? Can he do it again? Somebody that knows Mike Tomlin very well because he wrote an entire book about him will join me next on both Extra Sports 1300 and 740 KVOR. All right, we are off to a blazing start. Efforting John Harris, who's going to join me. He wrote a book about Mike Tomlin. In fact, my producer today, Ray Dominguez, if you don't mind giving me some help here, that we can try to get John on the program. Tonight, it's the Steelers and the Texans, one more game in the wild card round. So talk to John about that. Hopefully, if we can get him on here momentarily. In the meantime, your thoughts at 719-247-1313. I would text in and not call in because apparently our phones are on the fritz today. So let me shift gears here as we're roping in outside help to get our phones working. Professional radio we got going on here. We need to have a conversation about Peyton Watson, because Peyton Watson today was named the NBA's Western Conference Player of the Week for what he has been able to do over the last few days. So this just came down today from the NBA. Last week, Watson averaged 24.5 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, 1.3 steals, and 1.8 blocks over the course of last week. And I was sitting in Santa Clara in my hotel room watching this game, and the game on Saturday more so than last night. Nuggets won last night against the Milwaukee Bucks, but it was really Saturday that stood out to me, even in a loss, how well Peyton Watson performed. And there had been some discussions that I've had with friends and coworkers about the situation that the Nuggets are now perhaps finding themselves in, because Peyton Watson is playing incredibly well and has been playing at a level that we have never seen Peyton Watson play at. We've never seen this. And it's just so happens to be the year that he is due to be paid. Now, he's a restricted free agent, which, of course, brings in a lot of other variables into this. The Nuggets have the hammer, so to speak, on being able to retain his services. But the whole premise of this offseason for the Denver Nuggets was, yes, to get more depth, but how to get deeper, how to get more depth. Well, you had to create flexibility. You had to create flexibility by trading Michael Porter Jr. With the way that Peyton Watson has now played, it complicates the issue, because moving forward in today's NBA, flexibility as far as your payroll is still paramount. It's still incredibly important. And if the Denver Nuggets go down this road after paying Christian Brown to pay Peyton Watson essentially the same amount, is it not handcuffing yourself the same way you just were with Michael Porter's contract? But you have a guy flourishing, a guy who has taken on a bigger role and exceeded even David Adelman's expectation. Here is David Adelman after that Atlanta game.
I've been really proud of him. You know, he had 4 assists again tonight in a game that we shot 41%, 34 from 3. So he's trying to make the right play to go along with 11 rebounds. Pate's been such a bright spot as of late. He's one of the main reasons why we've been able to somewhat keep ourselves afloat.
And it's very difficult as an organization to put in the work to develop someone the way the Nuggets have with Peyton Watson, only to see that ROI finally come back around and then you let him go. But without another move, I think that's what the Denver Nuggets have to do. I think that the Denver Nuggets, as well as Peyton Watson has played, and as great of a story as he is, you cannot go back to where you were just a couple of years ago without the ability to improve your roster if the opportunity rolls around. You have to stay nimble. You have to stay flexible. Now, Christian Brown is not untradeable. He's not untradeable. That contract he has, you can move him. But right now, part of the reason why we have to have a conversation and why this has gotten a little bit difficult if you're the Denver Nuggets is because Christian Brown has come back and not looked like the player that he was before he got hurt. Now, I think a lot of it is him not trusting that ankle. For a guy that is explosive, for a guy that cuts quickly to the basket, jumps very high in the air, slams it down, lands on the ankle, I just don't think he trusts it. So there is a chance that over time he will trust his, and don't worry, live stream, this is Bill. Bill's fixing the phones. That's who's popping into the video here. There's a chance that over time Christian Brown is going to start to trust him more. And he's going to look better. And I think if you're a Nuggets fan, you should be optimistic about that. But this is still going to come to a head this season where you can't pay everybody. More so now more than ever. You cannot pay everybody. And so who do you want to keep? Because to me, you paid Christian Brown to have a very specific role for you. And I know Tim Hardaway Jr. had a great game last night, and that may further exacerbate this because you're like, wow, can't Tim Hardaway play the same position Christian Brown can? But you brought in Tim Hardaway to be a depth piece. You signed Christian Brown to be a starter. Right? All of a sudden, if you let Christian Brown go, you trade Christian Brown, elevate Tim Hardaway, make him the starting two guard, then you don't have a Tim Hardaway Jr. on the bench, which was the more important thing to get this offseason. I think if you are watching Peyton Watson and saying, man, I'd really like to see this guy remain a Denver Nugget for the long term, the player that you have to look at and have to ask yourself if you're willing to lose is Aaron Gordon. One, because of the position, but two, because of the flexibility. Do you look at Aaron Gordon's position the same way you looked at what was Kentavious Caldwell Pope's position a few years ago? Where it's, that guy's great, but we got this internal option. If we give them a bigger role, which turned out to be Christian Brown, we can get as good of results. That was Calvin Booth's thinking, by the way, in case you don't want to associate with him. That was his thinking. It would be, I think, because of what Aaron Gordon has been and has meant to the Nuggets organization, I think it would be this tenfold. How problematic it could be to say we're going to part ways with Aaron Gordon and rely on Peyton Watson to be almost as good, almost as important. I think that's a really difficult thing to put on Peyton Watson. And where I'm at on all of this is it is great that Peyton Watson is flourishing. Credit to him, credit to the coaching staff. In a way, he might be found money. They may look at it as an investment. Like they've made these gains and now it's finally starting to pay off. I kind of look at it as found money. No one expected this Peyton Watson to exist this year. What do you do with found money? You try to parlay it into a bigger win. Packaging him with Zeke Nnaji to finally get out from under that contract. Dangling him in trade talks if there is some other need that you have on your roster. I just don't see a way where you could pay Aaron Gordon. In addition, I mean, to say nothing of Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic, but to pay Aaron Gordon also what you're paying him. You just decided to pay Christian Brown. Now you're going to pay Peyton Watson. You may not have Jonas Valanciunas, Bruce Brown, Tim Hardaway long-term, and you may have to find their replacements. How are you going to be able to do all of that? I don't think you can. The mistake that the Nuggets made, and I voiced it at the time, was not doing the same thing that they were doing with Peyton Watson with Christian Brown. I know that Christian Brown had a bigger role on the title team. I know that he has a bigger role now with the Denver Nuggets, but you had time on your side. He was going to be a restricted free agent just like Peyton Watson. Were you so afraid that somebody would come in and offer a ridiculously large contract to Christian Brown that you had to sign him this offseason? I'm not even pushing back against the idea of extending Christian Brown. I questioned the timing of it. Why don't you let this, you just got this flexibility, why don't you let it play out a little while? It had to have been the Nuggets thinking there's just no way we're going to do better. He is too important to our team. And maybe it's, unforeseen, unintended consequences, unforeseen consequences that maybe the Nuggets did not expect Peyton Watson to flourish like he has this year. It's been quite a cascade of different things, all the injuries to allow this Peyton Watson to emerge. But I think that the Nuggets weren't betting on this version of Peyton Watson and made a decision based on what they thought, if they thought they could do better than Christian Brown, which they didn't think they could. And now things have gotten complicated because Peyton Watson is leading this team while all these guys are out. He's winning Western Conference Player of the Week. And I think the sentiment from the fan base is like, wait a minute, you got to pay this guy. How could you not pay this guy? Because I don't see a world where you could pay Peyton Watson and not put yourself in the exact same position you were in with Michael Porter Jr. just a couple years ago. 719-247-1313. Do you want the Denver Nuggets to pay Peyton Watson? Take your thoughts on that. More Drive Time Sports after this on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. Elevate your game day with Nuggets Premium Seating. Experience the action in style with your own suite and enjoy a next level night at Ball Arena. You can learn more at nuggets.com. Man, the football was good this weekend, wasn't it? One game in particular that I want to focus on, obviously outside of ones that have implications for the Denver Broncos. How did I know the answer, but at times you have to watch the San Francisco 49ers and say, how do they keep doing this? On the road against the defending champions, minus so many players, and yet the 49ers get it done. You want to talk about the most remarkable win? I know what happened in Chicago was crazy, but the most remarkable win was what San Francisco's. And it just, every day, their situation with injuries gets that much worse. And now it's worse. They're losing George Kittle. Like, the 49ers are looking around. How many teams in every sport, not just the NFL, how many teams use the fact we don't have this player or this player as an excuse? Or maybe the teams won't use it. How many people in the media, how many fans will say, oh, our team, oh, we can't compete because we're missing player X, Y, and Z. And San Francisco is missing player X, Y, and Z, and they're like, no, we're good. We're okay. Even in the postseason, it's one thing to get by with Mac Jones, for a handful of games or be without Nick Bosa and Fred Warner, two of not only your best defensive players, but the two of the best defensive players in the National Football League. It's one thing to get by the regular season without them. It's another thing that to go into the defending champion's house and beat them without those guys. Now, and maybe I'm saying that was the most remarkable win because that was the only game this weekend I got wrong. But isn't that part of what makes it remarkable, is if you don't think it's possible? I had every other game nailed except that one. Even as effusive as I have been with my praise of Kyle Shanahan and the San Francisco 49ers, even as recently as like 2 weeks ago, I was going on about the 49ers. First time in the postseason, I'm like, yeah, they're going to lose. And they just keep winning. It is remarkable. Now, the answer to why they keep winning, I think, is you don't have to even get very, like, it could be explained quite simply in football terms. They are better coached than 90% of the teams in the league. Kyle Shanahan, Robert Saleh, etc. But one guy that they have not missed, and I brought this up before, but the fact that Christian McCaffrey remains, it shows you how vital he is, how important he is, and how through him all things are possible. Whether it's Brock Purdy or Mac Jones as the quarterback, as long as they have CMC, they got a chance. So Shanahan and McCaffrey, the sons of the Shanahan and McCaffrey that you may know more around these parts, are a big reason why this particular 49ers team just keeps plugging along despite every quarter that goes by. It seems like they have another significant player succumb to injury. And now the 49ers, it's a little bit later down the road here, but the 49ers now become on the NFC side the team that you probably don't want to play. I think the Rams certainly are saying better Seattle plays them than we do. And I think the Bears are like, as good as the Rams are, we'll take our chances because there's something scary about a team like the 49ers. They're like Michael Myers in Halloween. Like, you could fill him up with bullets, you could stab him, you could knock him off of but they just keep coming at you. There's something intimidating about a team that can continue to do that. So I think LA and Chicago are like, yeah, Seattle, you go, Mike McDonald. Come on, Sam Darnold. You guys, we'll take our chances. And look, the NFC is stacked. Rams have an incredibly difficult matchup. Bears, like, that's going to be an epic game. But I think they're both would rather play the team that they're playing than San Francisco. So they deserve their credit, and regardless of how they fare this weekend against Seattle. The fact that they even made the postseason would, to me, put Kyle Shanahan high on the list of Coach of the Year candidates. But now they beat the defending champions in Philadelphia. Now they're really playing with house money, which makes them even scarier. But there's another side of this conversation that has to be asked, and it's being asked in San Francisco. Why are all these guys getting hurt? Like a guy like Christian McCaffrey, for instance, you can understand it, right? Running backs, especially someone in that is used as heavily as Christian McCaffrey is, you can understand if he gets banged up. Ironically, he's the only guy that's escaped this season unscathed. But most years, if it was him, you go, okay. Even with like Bosa, like, all right, that happens, unfortunately. And then it's Fred Warner. And now it's George Kittle. And it's like, where does it stop? And why does this keep happening? Kendrick Bourne, with a nod to perhaps what I just found out is a very popular theory in the Bay Area.
Yeah, it's that power plant. No, I'm just playing. I don't know, but it just sucks. It just sucks. But we do a good job of just working every day. Injuries are part of the game. It's unfortunate, but we just got to hold it down and keep that good energy, believing in ourselves, believing in the next man up.
Do you hear the beginning? That audio courtesy of KMBR, by the way. That power plant. I saw this and I was like, wait a minute. What's going on here? So, to save you the deep dive down the rabbit hole, that is the interwebs, there is a power plant that is right next to the 49ers practice field, which is right behind Levi's Stadium. There was an actual study. This came out. Peter Cowan at living_energy on Twitter says low-frequency electromagnetic fields can degrade collagen, weaken tendons, and cause soft tissue damage at levels regulators call quote-unquote safe. And he says, we have a real world case study proving this. And there is a picture of the practice field behind Levi Stadium in Santa Clara. It is a fascinating read if you have literally nothing else to do. That is, I mean, it's gotten to urban legend status. Kendrick Bourne is making note of it. He's making a joke out of it. But there are some in Santa Clara who are concerned at the impact of that power plant so close to where the 49ers play football. And why this story appeals to me is I was just there. When I was out on the road with Air Force women's basketball, we're playing in San Jose, stayed in Santa Clara. I saw that Levi Stadium was within jogging distance, about a mile and a half from my hotel, and I decided on Saturday morning I'm going to jog there. So I jogged there, I jogged back, and for the rest of the day, and to this day, my legs are absolutely killing me. So imagine how I reacted when I found out that low-frequency electromagnetic fields can degrade collagen, weaken tendons, and cause soft tissue damage. I experienced what the 49ers experienced. I was in the vicinity of Levi Stadium, and my legs hurt. I would be a game-time decision if I had to play Saturday against the Seattle Seahawks. So now it's this, and not just because I am old and out of shape. More Drive Time Sports coming up here on Extra Sports 1300. Welcome in hour 2 on this Monday. Reminder, in addition to listening to the show on Extra Sports 1300 and 740 KVOR, you can also watch the show on a daily basis on both of these stations' social media accounts. So, really no reason to miss out on this show on a daily basis, unless you want to miss out on this show on a daily basis, and then you can do that. But if you want to find the show, it is easily found. X, Facebook, Instagram, at XTRA Sports 1300 or at 740 KVOR. So we know now that the Denver Broncos are going to be playing the Buffalo Bills. And I started the show by talking about how perfect this matchup is. And when I say it's a perfect matchup, it's the symbolism of it. The full circle nature of it is perfect. As a storyline, it is perfect. Right? The team that the Broncos clawed their way into the postseason to get blown out by, now a year later, where they've been able to accomplish all of these things. They won more games. They won the division. They got the number 1 seed. All indications that they are a better team than they were 1 year ago. And now they get the ultimate test of it against the very team that knocked them out of the playoffs last year. So, in that regard, it's the perfect matchup for the Denver Broncos. From a football standpoint, it is not a perfect matchup. In fact, of all the possible permutations of what the Broncos' second-round opponent would be, this is the worst one. And you saw the chaos. Even if it wasn't a weekend filled with upsets in the NFL, you still saw that chaos that had permeated throughout the regular season, right? These games are wild. They're up in the air. It feels like there's a ton of parity around the league. And when there is a ton of parity, what matters the most is how you match up with your opponent that given week. And the Bills are just not a good matchup for the Denver Broncos. Number 1, it starts with Josh Allen. Right? If we just boil this down to quarterbacks, of all the quarterbacks that are not just on the AFC, of all the quarterbacks in the National Football League playoffs, Josh Allen is the very last one you want to play. And you saw it yesterday, what he is capable of. The reason why the Bills have faltered and not been able to get past Kansas City and not gotten over the hump and gotten to the Super Bowl is not on Josh Allen. Is not. So this idea that you can rattle him, you could force him into the mistakes, like look at his numbers. Watch him yesterday against a ball-hawking defense in Jacksonville. He's a different level. There are quarterbacks in the league that are able to elevate their game in the postseason, and there are ones that can't. With Josh Allen, it is proven that at the very least he keeps up his level of play. And when you really dig down deep, Josh Allen is probably a better postseason quarterback than he is on the whole during the regular season, because during the regular season, we are prone to one or two of those goofy Josh Allen games where he tries to, maybe even for him do a bit too much, and the Bills suffer for it. But of a group of quarterbacks, whether it's Nix or May or Stroud or Herbert or on the other side, Darnold and Purdy and, all these quarterbacks, there are so many even Lawrence. There are so many quarterbacks in these playoffs that you have questions about. You don't about basically Josh Allen and Matthew Stafford. So that's number one. And going up against a team that the best thing that they do is get after the opposing quarterback with a guy that has the escapability of Josh Allen, first and foremost, but also the ability that even in the Jaguars found this out yesterday. Even if you hit the guy, job's not finished. Kobe Bryant, job's not finished. For a team that makes a living of bringing passers down to the ground, they are now facing their toughest test, the most difficult guy maybe in the entire league to be able to do that against. But the Broncos have no choice. That is going to be a huge key to them. I think they'll be able to get to Josh Allen, get to him, be in his vicinity with him still holding on to the football. Can they bring him down? That's going to be one of the biggest keys to this game on Saturday. So Josh Allen makes it maybe the worst matchup the Broncos could have gotten. Secondly, which Josh Allen is part of this, the run game. The run game at times this year for the Denver Broncos has looked a little bit leaky. Some of the better backs in this league have been able to get yards on them. And for a defense that I feel like, and good on them for getting the bye week because I think they really needed it, look like a defense that was wearing down. The last thing that a defense that is wearing down should want to face is a prolific running game, which is what the Bills have. So two things that can give even this vaunted Broncos defense, this elite Broncos defense problems, Buffalo has. But on the defensive side of the football, I know this Bills team is not going to be confused with the 85 Bears or even this year's version of the Denver Broncos. But the scheme that they have in place is the exact scheme I've been talking about for weeks. It's what Jacksonville employed against them. It's what Kansas City employed against them. The way they scheme up their defense is to force you to matriculate the ball down the field, to be okay with 3-4 yards at a time. They're not going to let you throw it over the top of their heads for a 20 or 30-yard gain. And there were maybe a couple of times where Trevor Lawrence was able to get big plays, but not enough to win the game, obviously. So that zone scheme, the keeping the shell on the defense with the two high safeties, Buffalo's going to do that. And even if it wasn't who they were, they would give serious consideration to running it because of the strengths of the Denver Broncos. But the fact that this is just who they are makes it that there's a little bit more belief that they can successfully do those things against the Denver Broncos. And even though, here's the fourth thing, even with the Broncos being more well-versed in playoff football than they were a year ago, they still don't nearly stack up to Buffalo's experience. There is so much scar tissue that has built up with this Buffalo Bills team. They have learned every possible lesson you could learn in the playoffs. most of the Broncos roster has not learned those lessons. This is the most battle-tested team of anybody the Broncos could have faced in the divisional round. And that matters. So those are the reasons why. It's not just one reason. It's not just saying, oh, Josh Allen is really good. There are foundational things about who the Bills are that either give the Broncos problems or help neutralize some of the things that the Broncos do best. And in that way, it makes it even more so the best matchup, because if you see the Denver Broncos be able to answer some of these questions and be able to be successful against Josh Allen, against the run game, and against the type of defense that the Buffalo Bills are going to play, then you kind of look around and you say, what dragon is there left for us to slay? The Broncos may be getting their most difficult, and not maybe, are getting their most difficult possible test in the AFC out of the way in round 2. And if they're able to get through it, then you should feel supremely confident of their chances in the AFC Championship, regardless of whether it's Pittsburgh or Houston or New England. This was always going to be the matchup. I've been talking about this matchup for 2 months. This was always going to be the matchup that would be least favorable. And I have strength in numbers because the Broncos are one of just a few teams in many years to be a home underdog at this stage in the playoffs. None of these things are completely insurmountable, right? Because if you wanted to be optimistic about it, or you wanted to push back, you could say, well, Ryan, you say how difficult Josh Allen is to bring down, but most defenses don't sack the quarterback as well as the Broncos. You are correct. This is the unstoppable force and the immovable object type thing here. You have Broncos pass rushers that not only get to quarterbacks more than anybody else, but they don't miss on a lot of sack opportunities. Once they have a quarterback in their grasp, they go down. That's going to be the most fascinating aspect of Saturday's game, is that Broncos pass rush against Josh Allen, to keep him in the pocket and to hit him and to bring him down, to complete the act. It's going to be absolutely vital to the Denver Broncos. And if they can do that, they can win this football game. And let's also not forget how banged up Josh Allen is. Nobody is sitting here advocating for headhunting, although the head coach of the Denver Broncos, you would not totally believe him if he told you what I'm telling you. But no one's sitting here saying, hey, you got to take out Josh Allen. And if anybody's suggesting that, then that's pathetic. But the fact of the matter is, Josh Allen has a number of maladies that would be exacerbated by being hit repeatedly. It's just welcome to football. Not suggesting that the Broncos should do this. I'm not saying anybody on the Broncos would have this in their mind. Oh, he's got a hurt hand. Let me throw my helmet at his hand. That's not what any rational person is saying here. What rational people are saying is Josh Allen happens to be quite banged up to the point that perhaps it could impact his effectiveness. What the Denver Broncos do best could cause more issues. That's football. But even if they do that, everything I'm saying, get to Josh Allen, bring him down to the ground, it still doesn't go all the way in deciding this game. There is a lot of pain points on the Denver Broncos that this Bills team can push. And that's why this would be a supreme test of just truly how far the Denver Broncos have come in 365 days-ish. Take your thoughts on the matchup, 719-247-1313. You can text it into the show, or if you're watching the show on the aforementioned social media platforms, you can always just drop a comment right there. We'll continue on with this Monday edition of Drive Time Sports right after this on both Extra Sports 1300 and 740 KVOR. We have 4 nominees for the Athlete of the Week. If you are new to the program and new to the show and new to the Athlete of the Week program, here's how it works. We solicit your nominations for student athletes in our area that are excelling on the field or the mat or the ice or the track or the beam or whatever other playing surface they compete on. And each week we'll get 4 nominees up there. You will vote on the nominees, and the winner will be declared on Friday, and their schedule permitting. I have been big timed by a couple of our athletes of the week. They will be on this show as a guest. It's a fun thing we do. Blackjack Pizza and Salads is a huge supporter of it. So there are 4 nominees. Jordan Rollins of Colorado Springs Christian, Dylan Albrecht of Fountain Fort Carson, Wyatt Kirch of Rampart, and Peggy Dean of Sand Creek. To find out what they did and to cast your vote, you could go to both extrasports1300.com or kvor.com and cast your vote. Spread the word. You can share the poll on social media and get people to vote. So, yeah, and we thank Blackjack Pizza and Salads for supporting this program to spotlight local area athletes. To that end, can I be the insufferable proud dad for a minute? So, no word yet on I haven't gotten a nomination for Liam Kaufman yet. But he competed today in his first wrestling tournament. He's in 8th grade. Competed in his first wrestling tournament ever. Took on a sport, not a sport that people take on, just on a whim, like, hey, I'm going to go wrestle. Maybe he had some prodding from his father. Maybe one of his father's high school teammates is also his teacher. Maybe, maybe not. The point is, Liam Kaufman is trying wrestling at his tournament first time today. And he got 3rd place. Pinned 2 opponents. Went 2-2 today, 2 pins, 1 3rd place. And I could say that his father is absolutely beaming with pride. Until his uncle texted and said that he's already matched his father's career win total. And then that kind of bummed me out. But, yeah, that's... if you have a platform like this, if you're not going to use it for selfish reasons, then really what is the point? Proud of my boy. I was just proud that he picked up the sport. But did not make maybe next week. You'll see. It's high school athletes. That's why it won't be included. But that pretty much made my whole week, and it's only Monday. So, all right. Enough of that. That's not what you came here for. That Packers Bears game was a bit nutty, wasn't it? And I heard Black and Abdallah, who's our new show, replacing Rich Eisen because Eisen is now with ESPN, as you probably know, and we're not ESPN. So that's where that went down. But the show we got in that time slot, I thought today described it perfectly. The entirety of the way that game played out, you're like, I knew it. And I'm paraphrasing, but they were talking about it earlier, and that's kind of what I was thinking when I was watching it on Saturday. It's like you go from the Bears, as great of a story as they have been, that they are, let's just say, more suited for the regular season. Let's just say that. Let's not get nasty with the name calling. Just more suited for the regular season, where they are right now in their franchise's arc. And by the end of it, you're like, oh, here we are again with the Packers can't win big games. I mean, you saw the biggest knock on these two teams play itself out through one half of football. It's just for the Bears, the fortuitous thing for them is they had their thing in the first half. And I got to tell you, I mean, I was watching the game when I was eating dinner in Santa Clara, and I got to tell you, I wasn't paying a ton of attention at halftime. Now I'm watching. Now I'm a little bit more glued to the TV, and I'm like, is this thing going to happen? And it does. And it was to me, it was the perfect example of something that we don't do a lot of in sports media or as sports fans, because we look at everything through a certain lens. Right? Broncos won on Sunday. Do you really care what the other team has to say on why they lost the game? No, because you're a Broncos fan, and whether they win or whether they lose, that's the perspective you care about the most. But there are two sides of the story. For every epic comeback, there is an epic collapse. I believe there's like a law of physics that speaks to this phenomenon about opposite and equal reactions. That was a game. Did the Bears win it or the Packers lose it? And the answer is yes. You have to give the Bears an immense amount of credit for not going away. For sticking with it, for battling to put themselves in a position that Brandon McManus, former Denver Bronco, absolutely having the worst day of his professional career, that they could make something of that they could make it hurt Green Bay. So you can't just completely, just blanket statement say the Packers blew it. Like, let's give the Bears a little bit of credit. They were left for dead at halftime, and they battled. And the throw that Caleb Williams made late in that game to the player on the sideline, I mean, how many quarterbacks make that throw? 5? If that? So it's kudos to the Bears, and it's credit to the Bears. But yeah, the Packers blew that game too. But not Jordan Love. Guy throws 4 touchdowns. What is Jordan Love supposed to do? Throw 5? Like, yes, in theory, 5 touchdowns would have gotten the job done, but is Jordan Love supposed to throw 5 touchdowns? Or can Brandon McManus make 1 kick? And he doesn't have to make every kick. Just make 1. Make the extra point or the field goal. So did the Bears win that game or the Packers lose that game? Yes. Now, if I'm, tipping the scales one way or another, that is what we call in the business a choke job. Like if you want to say which is it more of, which I think is the better question to ask, because it's the Packers side of this. Even though our world in the NFL recently has been kickers miss kicks. And it's funny, I was thinking about this watching that game Saturday night. I seem to remember former Broncos coach Vic Fangio just like beside himself upset that Brandon Aubrey was like wrecking the game of football because he got to kick with his own football all week. Remember that? Remember when Vic Fangio talked about how much of an advantage it was for kickers and the irony of Jake Elliott missing one of the biggest kicks of that game yesterday was in a tragic way, quite poetic. Didn't seem to help Jake Elliott. But I remember when Vic Fangio was talking about how much of an advantage kickers now got because the ball that they kicked with during the week, they could bring into the game. And it's why Brandon Aubrey is making, Jason Elam look like a short distance field goal kicker. And now all we've had for the past week, whether it's the Ravens-Steelers game, whether it's the Eagles game, whether it's the Packers game, all we're seeing is kickers missing kicks. So maybe what Vic Fangio said all those weeks ago was right, but it's not just distance, it's accuracy, right? That's the other part of it. Like if you're a golfer, maybe you can't relate to a field goal kicker in the NFL. You can relate to driving the golf ball. If you're one of those guys that like to get on the tee box and just smash it, like good on you. I probably can't hit the ball as far as you can. But if you're hooking it left into the trees, I might beat you on this hole anyway, even though you outdrive me by 100 yards. Right? It's distance. That's great. That's a skill set. But how about accuracy with it? The accuracy has been lacking from NFL kickers over the past week. But you're up by what you were up by. The Bears had no pulse at halftime. For the Packers to end up losing that game, yeah, they blew it. If you want to pick just one, that's what it was. But the more nuanced conversation is let's give some credit to these young Bears. And it's not, you can't give a coach coach of the year because of the playoffs. Okay, we're not getting that conversation. But it further underscores why I think Ben Johnson is the coach of the year in the NFL. And there are a lot of good candidates. You want to throw Peyton out there, Shanahan, McDonald, like there's so many guys that are eligible, that have cases to be made. Why Ben Johnson's is the best. Look at what Caleb and the Bears were last year. One of the biggest disappointments in the National Football League. People questioning whether Caleb Williams could actually be an NFL quarterback or be a successful one, right? Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, look at what they're doing. Why can't Caleb do this? The mess it was with Eberflus and everything like that. Ben Johnson has come in, and now the Bears are 2 wins away from a Super Bowl. And Saturday just like Bears life, and you don't have to be a fan of the Chicago Bears to understand the plight of that organization and that fan base. Think about how you felt about the Bears' chances in the second half of that game and how much you relied on previous history to say, yeah, the Bears have no chance. Trust me, Bears fans were thinking the same thing. So for the Bears to not succumb to that, for the Bears to come back, it showed how much different this team is under Ben Johnson than they were under Matt Eberflus. And the world of difference he's made for Caleb Williams, who now we're right back on track. Now we got, Jaden Daniels takes a step back, but let's give him some leeway because of the injuries. You have Daniels, Caleb, Bo Nix, Drake May. this is going to be a fun debate for years to come, right? All of these guys have shown that they belong. That is a different Bears team. But yeah, if we're boiling it down to brass tacks, yeah, the Packers blew it. Jordan Love, to me, I don't put him at fault. But yeah, as a team, they blew it. You got to win that game. I don't care where it's being played. That's a division opponent. You're not intimidated by Soldier Field. You got to win that game. And I'm just waiting. I don't see how Brandon McManus is back with the Packers next year. I think that's the coldest take, the least hot take that could be thrown out today. I don't think Brandon McManus has a lot of job security in Green Bay after that performance. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on Wild Card Weekend. One game left in Wild Card Weekend. You could hear it at 6 on 740 KVUR. It's the Steelers and the Texans. For now, we keep the conversation going on 740 KVUR and Extra Sports 1300. Let's get to some of your texts on this Monday, shall we? A few of them in at 719-247-1313. More on Peyton Watson's big honor and the Broncos' big opponent coming up at the top of the hour. Speaking of the latter, Tony, first of all, says some kind words about me, being what's the word? Effusive with my praise when it comes to my son. Proud of my son. First wrestling tournament today as an 8th grader. He got 2 pins, ended up placing 3rd. The kid never wrestled in his life. So proud dad moment. Just want to share that because it was happening as I'm doing the show. I'm getting updates on how he's doing. So, it's cool. It's cool. And thank you, Tony, for saying that. Adds, this Broncos team believes in themselves, Ryan. They expect to win. Coach P will have some wrinkles the Bills haven't seen or don't expect. Keep the faith, bud. Well, I don't know what faith am I keeping? I'm not. You're saying that to Broncos fans. That's fine. There's not faith that I need faith in the Broncos to be instilled into me, Tony. There's no faith that I am keeping. But you're right. And I said at last Monday, a week ago today, when the Broncos finished the job and got the number 1 seed, all that kind of stuff, I said the biggest advantage that they have, the best thing they have going for them, is Sean Payton. And if you handicap this matchup the way that I do, and you say that somebody's got to figure this stuff out, that's where it's good to have Sean Payton as the guy that's figuring it out. In the way that Sean Payton talked after that Bills game, it was almost like the way that he talks about Kansas City. And I'm sure Sean Payton kind of feels this way about every opponent that he loses to. But this idea of, no, we learned something. Yeah, next time, all right, you got me now, but that next time I got a little something for you. Like, it felt that way with Kansas City, and now it felt that way with Buffalo. And I would say that that's the biggest advantage, other than the Broncos pass rush going against the Bills offensive line, is Sean Payton opposite of Sean McDermott. Like, that's something that you put in the Broncos column and say that's where they have an advantage. So having Sean Payton to figure out these things is who you want to have in your corner. But to me, ultimately, it becomes, will the players be able to execute it? There have been times this season, especially lately, where it feels like there's a bit of disconnect between what Sean Payton is calling and what the Broncos are executing. The Jacksonville game, you heard Sean Payton talk about guys trying to do too much. That's not saying I called a play that was doing too much. There are guys that have options within the play I am calling and choosing to do too much. So I think Sean Payton has a tremendous game plan for every opponent. I would just say I don't have as much faith as maybe you do, Tony, in the Broncos players' ability to be able to be that extension of Sean Payton. But if you want to have confidence in the game plan, have confidence in the game plan. Right? And you remember how that Buffalo game started last year. That was the Broncos going right over the top of their heads for a Troy Franklin touchdown. Like, Sean Payton's going to have some things for this Bills team, no doubt about it. But what you saw in the Buffalo-Jacksonville game, and this is another question about the Denver Broncos, 4 quarters, every drive for 4 quarters. That's what it's going to take. And this is a team that just hasn't shown you enough that quarter 1 through quarter 4, they're going to be able to execute. Every team has to punt. Every team has to overcome adversities. Trevor Lawrence threw a pick early in the game, bounced back pretty well from it. But the idea of you can't win this game in the first quarter, but you can lose it. Can the Broncos take the plan that Sean Payton gives them and execute for 4 quarters, which is a requirement if you're going to advance in the postseason? Albert says, Cornucopia of Sports has always included basic physics principles of reaction forces. I'm waiting for your essay presentation on thermodynamics and the Cleveland Browns head coaching position. Well, between me and the fact that Mike McDaniel might be the Cleveland Browns choice, you might get quite the dissertation from me and Mike McDaniel both. Sure seems like the Browns really want Mike McDaniel. I don't know that Mike McDaniel should want the Browns. In fact, to that end, thank you, Albert, for the easy transition here. Sean Payton said something this weekend that I thought was interesting and kind of is speaking to this. He was asked about the distraction or the difficulty of having multiple assistants while they're trying to prepare for playoff games, interviewing for other jobs. Here is Sean Payton on that. Catch what he says at the very end.
I want to see them realize their dreams.
Let me start that over.
I want to see them realize their dreams. So I think it's really early in the process. I think, some of these teams every 3 years come up, and our guys are smart to understand that, there's no utopia, but there's some places that are tough to win at.
What is Sean Payton's advice to Davis Webb and to Vance Joseph? Essentially, don't take the Cleveland job. Don't take the Tennessee job. Don't take the Raider job. That's Sean Payton issuing weren't like, yeah, I know you guys want to be head coaches. I think this is especially for Davis Webb. Not because Davis Webb is more valuable than Vance Joseph. I don't think that he is. But because of how early Davis Webb is in his career and the fact that if he continues to progress, there are going to be more opportunities. It's the idea of, you sure you want to jump ship from here? And maybe it's a little self-serving on Sean Payton's part. Right? It helps him. He doesn't have to find another assistant if Vance Joseph and Davis Webb don't get head coaching jobs. But I think genuinely Sean Payton is trying to look out for his people. I do. Davis, you sure you want to jump ship to take the Raider job? You sure you want to go against me twice a year? But more importantly, you want to be joined up with that organization? That's the organization that you want to jump into the deep end and be a head coach with? I mean, it's like Sean Payton talks about the how 20 teams in the league can't win because of their owner. This is kind of an extension of that. Telling Vance Joseph and Davis Webb, yeah, I know one day you want to be your head coach, and I want you to help you. Remember when he let Davis Webb call plays during the preseason game? Like, I think Sean Payton and most older coaches, I do think, take pride in their coaching tree, right? Sean Payton's coaching tree is maybe better than Belichick's, or at least there's not as many negatives that as Bill Belichick's has, but it's not near what it is for Shanahan. So I think it's his legacy, an extension of his legacy when his coaches go out and have success, like a Dan Campbell. So he's saying, I want you to be a head coach. I want to help you be a head coach. But like, I want you to be the head coach in the right spot where you could be successful. And there are teams, the Giants are another one. Since they fired Tom Coughlin, look at how they've recycled coaches. He's not calling anybody out by name, but you can almost fill in the blanks. Who is Sean Payton referring to? Everybody but Baltimore, pretty much. Cleveland recycles coaches. Arizona recycles coaches. Vegas recycles coaches. So I think that's Sean Payton saying in a roundabout way, yeah, they came to me and asked me what I thought about these jobs, and I told them that you should stick with me for another year. Unless, of course, Baltimore comes open. More Drive Time Sports after this. Hello there. Welcome in to a Monday edition of the show. So glad to have you, whether you're listening on Extra Sports 1300 or our new home, 740 KVOR, any of their streaming platforms as well. Yeah, it's great to have you. 719-247-1313 is the number. You could text into the show and give your thoughts on the day's topics. In fact, if you're new to the show, we do this thing right now on the show where we kind of encapsulate the biggest stories of the day. We call it What's Driving the Show, and here it is. All right, we start with the Broncos divisional round opponent being decided.
Allen under center. Gets the snap. The push from Gilliam into the end zone. It's a Buffalo touchdown.
Westwood One Sports on the call, as heard yesterday on 740 KVOR. It will be the Buffalo Bills who will be coming to Denver this weekend. We know it's Saturday. We do not know whether it's Saturday afternoon or Saturday night. That depends. If you want my guess, which is worth very little, I would say that the Bills would be visiting Denver for about a 2:30 kickoff on Saturday. But the important thing is that's who the Broncos will play, is the Buffalo Bills. And, of course, it is the Buffalo Bills. Why wouldn't it be the Buffalo Bills? For two reasons. One, because it is the most difficult matchup the Broncos could have possibly drawn in the divisional round. And for a team that seems to live their lives the hard way, not making it easy on themselves at various times throughout the year, why wouldn't they take on the most difficult opponent they could possibly draw? And the reasons for that are many. It's Josh Allen. It's the run game of the Buffalo Bills, but it's also that the principles that the Bills have defensively are the ones that have given the Denver Broncos problems over the last few weeks. So this is not a great matchup for the Denver Broncos. So that's why, of course, Buffalo. But the bigger, of course, it's Buffalo, is about something bigger. And I relate it on a lesser scale of what the Nuggets had to go through when they eventually won their first title. Right? It's a little apples and oranges, but bear with me here because the Denver Nuggets, this iteration of the Denver Nuggets, but also previous iterations of the Denver Nuggets, anytime they had a promising team, would seem to run up against the LA Lakers, whether they were the Magic Johnson-led Lakers, whether they were the Kobe Lakers or the LeBron Lakers. And so the catharsis, but also the idea that, of course, they had to get through LA to get to their first title. They couldn't go to to an NBA Finals without slaying that dragon, right? So there isn't the history between Denver and Buffalo that there is between Denver and LA in the NBA, but I still think that there are parallels. 1 year ago, the Denver Broncos got a taste of what playoff football is all about. And what they found out is that they are not close to ready. From a talent perspective, from a maturity standpoint, from an experience, all that stuff, they weren't ready. And the Bills just destroyed them. So what better way to measure how far truly this Broncos team has come? You have so many of these measuring sticks, the close wins, the unseating Kansas City at the top of the AFC West. We've had some things along the way where they have led you to say, well, this team's much better than last year's team. How about the fact that they're hosting the Buffalo Bills this time around? That's another thing. So here's one more thing. Now you will be able to, come Monday, regardless of the result, you will be able to hold up this year's performance against the Bills against last year's, and you can say, how much better was this Broncos team? If they win, it'll be an easy answer. If they lose, then it will be a more nuanced conversation. But even before the Chargers played the Patriots, once that final, play, that fumble and recovery by the Bills happened and the Bills won, I'm like, it's going to be the Bills. And I thought the Chargers had a shot in Foxborough. I'm just saying the universe, the sports universe they were sending a message. It has to be Buffalo and Denver. And it will be this Saturday. Again, either afternoon or evening. We don't know yet. We'll know later this evening. By the way, I don't like this, holding it over. It feels like Ryan Seacrest on American Idol will tell you after the break, we'll tell you what games are going to be played. Stick around for the Chevy postgame show. How dare you, NBC. ESPN's going to do the same thing tonight. It may leak out. Check social media for that. But it will be Saturday, and it will be the Buffalo Bills because, of course, it will be the Buffalo Bills. Let's go to basketball for story number 2.
Absolutely. I think since college, when people kind of doubted my ability to contribute offensively, I think that's always been something that I've been itching to get out and prove to people. But at the end of the day, waiting my turn was the best thing for me. I've gotten so much better. I've developed a lot. I've had time to mature as a young man. And right now feels like perfect timing to kind of unleash what I've been working on. And also just having guys out and just having the necessity to step up, I think, has just been good for me.
Really good, well thought out answer. That was after Friday's game against the Atlanta Hawks, which the Denver Nuggets lost. But I knew watching that game that we were going to have a conversation about Peyton Watson today. And then yesterday's game happened. And Peyton Watson played well again. And then the news of the afternoon, why he's one of the 3 stories that are driving the show, Peyton Watson has been named the Western Conference Player of the Week. And talking about how he wanted to prove he could score the basketball, he averaged almost 25 points last week. So Peyton Watson is reaching heights that he's never seen before in his career. And the conversation we have to have is, what do you do if you're the Denver Nuggets? Because you worked this offseason. You were able, Ben Tenzer and John Wallace, you were able to get what is so precious in today's NBA. The 2 things that are most precious: flexibility and depth. You did that by trading Michael Porter Jr. Are you really going to be willing to pay Peyton Watson after you paid Christian Brown and with everybody else you have to pay? Are the Denver Nuggets just asking to be put right back in the same cap prison they were in for a few years after they won the title by paying both Peyton Watson and Christian Brown? To me, that is something that the Nuggets cannot experiment with. They can't go back and say, well, maybe we get it. No. This team has shown, you have seen the results. When this team has the flexibility to go out and get veteran bench players, how much scarier this team can be. You cannot trade that away just because you want to be able to reap the ROI that all those years of working with Peyton Watson have. I know it's a difficult thing to do. This team has invested a lot in Peyton Watson, and now they're seeing the fruits of their labor, and now he's a restricted free agent. You have to understand what is more important. The flexibility that they got this offseason is paramount. If Jonas Valanciunas decides to go to Yugoslavia or wherever it was that he was flirting with during the offseason, remember that whole thing? You're going to need to go out and find another Jonas Valanciunas. If Tim Hardaway cashes in, you're going to have to find a new Tim Hardaway. And you're not going to be able to do that if you just say, all right, we're going to take what is a team that's 8 or 9 deep right now, or we're going to make them 7 deep or 6 deep. You can't do that. And the mistake is not letting this thing play out. I don't know why they signed Christian Brown when they did. Because he'd be in the same boat as Peyton Watson, and then we could compare and contrast and decide by the end of the year which guy was more valuable. Now we have the benefit of hindsight. We have the benefit of sitting here and saying, oh, Peyton Watson is balling out. Sure makes that Christian Brown signing look silly. And I grant that, right? None of us expected this Peyton Watson to be playing for the Denver Nuggets this year. But it was at least conceivable. And nobody believes in Peyton Watson more than the Nuggets organization. Maybe you or I couldn't see this coming, but did anybody in the Nuggets organization think for a second that maybe Peyton Watson was ready to pop, that he was ready to break through? Or didn't they believe it in their heart of hearts? Didn't they have faith in that? So why lock up Christian Brown? I don't see how Peyton Watson can remain on the Denver Nuggets long term if it doesn't cost them someone else. It can either cost them someone or someone's. Someone's bench guys. Someone, Christian Brown or Aaron Gordon. I just don't see how they can afford to pay all of these guys. Maybe it's a good problem. Maybe that's how the Nuggets view it. Like, hey, we got a guy that's blossoming. Now we have the flexibility to move on. I'm just saying from a cap perspective, they can't pay all of these guys and expect to have the same flexibility that allowed them to get Jonas Valanciunas and Tim Hardaway. Or maybe you look a year down the road, it costs you Cam Johnson. Maybe it's a good problem to have, but it's starting to become a problem. But congratulations to Peyton Watson. All credit to him. Dude played amazingly well last week. And you know this, if you're following the Denver Nuggets, this is not a new phenomenon for Peyton Watson in the year 2025, 2026. He was playing well before all these injuries happened. By the way, Nuggets won last night against the Milwaukee Bucks. So to bounce back after that loss to Atlanta. So they're staying afloat. That's the good news with the Denver Nuggets. And let's go back to the NFL for story number 3.
McCaffrey in the backfield, and they are going to fake it on a jet sweep and throw it downfield. McCaffrey over the shoulder grab, touchdown. Jennings is the one who did it.
Westwood One Sports on the call. You heard it on 740 KVOR yesterday. The San Francisco 49ers with easily the most surprising result of the weekend. There were crazier games. There weren't more surprising results than San Francisco going into Philadelphia and knocking off the reigning Super Bowl champions. Not because I had this, feeling that Philadelphia was unbeatable, but it's because the San Francisco 49ers, while they were a great regular season story, are missing some significant players if you had not noticed. And they lost another one yesterday in George Kittle. But the fact that the 49ers were able to take what has been one of the best stories in the NFL this year, the 49ers losing Brock Purdy, losing Nick Bosa, losing Fred Warner, losing not ever having Brandon Ayuk, the list goes on, and to keep on ticking and to find their way to the playoffs, that's a great story. It could end there. Kudos to the 49ers. They go into Philly and they get a win, despite all of these injuries. And the reasons are simple, really. As impressive as it is, and I want to take away from how impressive it is, they have Kyle Shanahan and they have Christian McCaffrey. All along with Mac Jones and patchwork defense and, you know, who the weapons were that whatever quarterback was thrown to, they still had CMC. And they run everything through that guy. And the guy calling the plays that run through Christian McCaffrey is one of the best coaches in the NFL in Kyle Shanahan. And I thought he thoroughly outcoached every counterpart he had. And I'll just, Saleh too. Shanahan and his staff thoroughly outcoached Nick Sirianni and his staff. And that has continued to be the reason why the San Francisco 49ers have won as many games as they do, because their coaches are better than yours. And maybe much better than yours. I mean, I'm inclined to say, well, George Kittle, that's the final blow. That's the proverbial straw that's going to break the camel's back. Surely the San Francisco 49ers can't get it done again going to Seattle without George Kittle. I said I may be inclined to do that. I'll let you say that. This 49ers team, I said it earlier, they're Michael Myers in Halloween. Light him on fire, shoot him in the chest, stab him in the back. He's going to just sit right back up, get up, and will calmly walk after you. And somehow, even though you're at a dead sprint and he's walking, he's going to catch up to you. That's who the San Francisco 49ers are. Remarkable that even on the playoff stage, missing all of the players they were missing, they still were able to get it done. 719-247-1313. Your thoughts on Wild Card Weekend, whether it's Broncos related or not. It's a football Monday. All of these games. Hey, you want to talk about the college football semifinals? I'll talk to you about the college football semifinals. I have some thoughts on that. We'll continue on this Monday edition of Drive Time Sports on Extra Sports 1300 and 740 KVOR. On February 26th, Avalanche hockey gets animated. Tune in to Bernie's Mountain Showdown as the Avs face Minnesota in a real-time animated broadcast built for kids and families. Like you like the football games in Andy's room and Toy Story, all that kind of stuff. NHL has done this before. Clearly, it's proven to be a great way to get younger fans interested. So look out for that. That's February 26th. More details to follow. Tonight with the Avalanche, by the way, is my least favorite thing in the world. And that is the Avalanche wearing the Nordiques sweaters against the Toronto Maple Leafs. And what bothered me is that they tweeted out, what they say? Did they call it a... Where is it? A classic matchup at Ball Arena. A classic matchup at Ball Arena between the Avalanche and the Maple Leafs. That is absolutely not true. Oh, it's the Nordiques and the Maple Leafs. Yeah, but it's not the Nordiques. The Nordiques are dead. Long live the Nordiques. It's the Avalanche and the Leafs, and they're playing in Colorado. So if it's a classic matchup between the Nordiques and the Maple Leafs, why is it being held in Denver? If you think that the Nordique sweaters are dope, why they are cool looking. But stop using the history of the Nordiques to make a buck and to promote your product. I get it. You bought the rights, but this is one of those things where things that you can do maybe don't match up with things that you should do. It drives me nuts. And the fact that they're wearing them tonight against the Leafs and they're probably going to, the scorebug's going to probably say Quebec. I have taken up this mantle for, I hope that the people of Quebec appreciate what I am doing on their behalf. Because if I were someone that lived in Quebec and I saw my team all 30 years ago get ripped away from me and shipped to Colorado only for them to, on a whim, decide, hey, let's make a few extra bucks by playing in the Nordiques uniforms, I would be beside myself. I'd be so mad. So the people of Quebec, you have a friend in me. That's Toy Story. I don't like it, but that's what they're doing. And I suppose they have the right to do it. That game coming up tonight, it'll be a late one. National televised game, 8 o'clock is the puck drop tonight on 740 KVOR. It will be Texans Steelers in the final game of Wild Card Weekend. So we've talked a lot today about the winners, right? Because we like talking about winners. The Bears, credit to them, credit to the 49ers. Bills won, so we start to get into the Broncos-Bills conversation. But there are losers from this weekend. And one of those losers, and I don't mean in terms of like who they are, I'm telling you, and because of the result. The Jaguars lost. They are, by definition, the losers of that game. But in many ways, the Jaguars became a bigger story today than Buffalo is because of one interaction between Lynn Jones, a reporter for the Jacksonville Free Press, and Jags head coach Liam Cohen. This is from yesterday.
I want to tell you, congratulations on your success, young man.
Thank
You
you.
hold your head up, all right? You guys have had a most magnificent season.
Thank
And you
you.
did a great job out there today.
Appreciate
so you
it.
just hold your head up, okay?
Thank
And
you,
ladies
ma'am.
and gentlemen, Duval, you the one, all
Thank
right?
you, ma'am.
keep it going. We got another season,
I
okay?
appreciate
Take
it.
care and much continued success to you and the entire team.
Thank you, ma'am.
That happened during a post-game press conference. by a member of the credentialed media. Now, before I go any further, she appeared on Jacksonville television today. In fact, Ray, if you could help me out with the station so we give them proper credit for this. But Lynn Jones defending, or at least explaining why she felt like during the post-game press conference, she felt compelled to console the grown man head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Coach, word up, coach. So coach came out and his emotions, he was totally immersed. His feelings. He had tears. He bit his lip. And the issue is the question, not necessarily a question in the fourth quarter, in the fourth down, and the punt came through.
Right.
But my question was, keep your head up, young man. Yeah. Young man, this entire year, we have rooted for this team over more than 30 years. Do you understand what I'm saying? The stadium, the solemnness, we were rooting. I mean, it was packed.
So that was from WJXT down in Jacksonville, to give them credit. I hear that, and I think Lynn Jones, I can tell unequivocally with just those two sound bites that she is a great human being. What she did is very nice of her to do. It is not something that you should be doing in a post-game press conference. Okay, because I already feel like there are too many, and I'll say the two experiences that I have had that remind me of this. One I experienced in Boulder, covering games up there. There are some people up there that I don't know if they're there to be the conduit between the team and the fans, and are more there to worship at the altar of Deion Sanders. I don't know what other way to put it. They're just, and it's not most, some, a couple. Some of the questions that weren't really questions that have been lobbed in the first year of Deion Sanders in Boulder, they don't teach you in journalism school. And I don't know if they're trying to get a personal relationship with Deion Sanders, or this is just how they feel in their heart. I was taken back at some of the questions that were asked, because they just sounded like Deion Sanders' family member was in the room defending them against the evil, mean journalists. And I have experienced this in other places, because there is a part of sports media that has emerged that is different than we have had for a very long time. They would be, called in a long time ago, not that long, but they'd be called bloggers, right? You're a fan. You're not there to report. You're there to take whatever access you get, spin it, and present it as, and you know what outlets they are. Okay. And that's something that it wouldn't be something that I would do. And I don't really think super highly of those outlets, because I think that part of being good at covering a team is to be able to be critical at times, and to take everything they say and spin it into a positive. And it's not my taste, but it's a big sports media world. And if that is something that people like, then we're entertainment after all. So Lynn Jones is not a new phenomenon, but it's a pretty high profile instance of this. I actually I was a little bit surprised when I heard the clip. And I'll just play it and I'll tell you when there's a line where I'm like, okay, this is not that bad. And then it got worse. So I'll play this again and I'll tell you where that line is.
I want to tell you, congratulations on your success, young man.
Thank
You
you.
hold your head up, all right? You guys have had a most magnificent season.
Thank
You
you.
did
Right
a great
here.
job out there today.
Appreciate
so you
it.
just hold your head up, okay?
Thank
and
you,
ladies
ma'am.
and gentlemen, Duval, you the one, all right?
And now it
keep going. We got
really
another
goes over
season,
the
okay?
edge right
Take
there.
care and much continued success to you and the entire team.
Thank you, man.
See what I'm saying? So that's where it is. If you just, because I've heard people say welcome, they say congratulations. They compliment him. I actually, the first part of what Lynn Jones says, I don't have a problem with. Okay, she works for the Jacksonville Free Press. Okay, it's not the New York Times that she works for. It's a Jacksonville publication. It is a community media outlet. I don't have a problem with her praising Liam Cohen for the job that he's done. But then she doubles down on it and then throws out a Duval. Like it got worse. The first 5, maybe 10 seconds, you're like, well, I guess it wasn't that long. First 5 seconds. Well, that's fine. You're being curmudgeon-y if you don't think that Lynn Jones, who covers the Jaguars, who is invested in this community, right, in Jacksonville, says, good job, good season. Even if but when she starts saying, hold your head up, now it's like, who are you? And Liam Cohen is the one put in the awkward position because he's like, I don't know what relationship he has with this reporter. But for me, if I'm Liam Cohen, I'm like, all right, you got to stop now. And her going on local television and saying that he was, tearing up and all this kind of stuff. If I'm Liam Cohen, I don't want her defending me like this or defending herself by pointing these things out. There is a line that she crossed. And to do that when you have national attention, when you're in the most crowded media room that you're going to be in all season because there's national media types in there, there is just, I don't want to say code of conduct because she didn't do anything that violates any laws or anything like that, but she went too far. And she came off as a fan. She came across she sounded like they let in Lynn from section 105 to come in and ask Liam Cohen a question in the post-game press conference. And that's not how you want to represent your media outlet. And I don't think you want to represent yourself as a reporter. Clearly she does, but I wouldn't want to do it. And most of the people in that room wouldn't. Now, glass houses, stones, let's not turn Lynn Jones into the worst person ever in media. Okay. But the fact of the matter is she did go too far. She crossed a line going from reporter, journalist to fan and concerned neighbor that I just don't think should be crossed. But I would be curious your thoughts on this at 719-247-1313, because I even kind of tense up when I hear reporters in a press room like congratulate somebody. Like congratulations on this or that. It's like, would a compliment from you really matter to this person? Like maybe that's where I'm at, what I'm thinking about. I'm just saying, you're saying congratulations. Who are you to say, are you buddies with this person? Welcome to Denver. Welcome to Colorado Springs. Welcome. I don't know. It's fine. And she's sounds like a sweet lady. But I don't think it made her look good, and I don't think it made Liam Cohen, who she labeled as the one, Duval, don't think it made him look great either. 719-247-1313. More Drive Time Sports after this. Let's finish up with some of your thoughts on this Monday, 719-247-1313, or you could drop a comment if you're watching the show on the station's social media platforms. Instagram seems to be the place where people want to comment today. First, Sean Martinez, outstanding co-host of Colorado Springs Morning News, heard on this fine radio station. This being KVOR, we're also on Extra, but here's Sean in the mornings on 740 KVOR saying bravo to your son for wrestling. I appreciate that. I have long had the belief that it just in life, people don't care about what's going on with you. So like, I'm not big into showing pictures of my kids. I don't really post on social media about my kids. Today was just different. I don't know. I love the sport of wrestling, and it meant a lot to me growing up. And to see my son take part in it already, I'm proud of him for doing that, because that's not an easy sport. And the first week of practice was pretty rough for him. And to see him have so much success right away was really cool. So thank you for humoring me as I flipped into dad mode there for a minute. Now, I'll tell you, he has another tournament on Thursday. If that doesn't go well, equal and opposite reaction, right? Earlier we were talking, that law of physics. I will lead the show with criticizing him for not, after a third place finish, you come out and lay an egg. Please no one tell him I said that. I'm just joking. I'm joking. All right. DJ Michaels also heard on these fine radio stations on the Nordiques uniforms. He hates them. And I know that DJ's with me on this. DJ and I have conversed in the hallways here of Cumulus Media on a number of occasions on our mutual disdain for those. Now, he thinks they're ugly. I do think they look dope. I'm just saying, stop using Quebec's history to make a profit. I don't like it. I don't like when the Memphis Grizzlies wear Vancouver Grizzlies stuff. And I think you have to give the Thunder credit here. I know right now nobody really likes OKC, but it's not because they've worn Sonics gear. Not that I at least am aware of. Because they know people would come down from the Northwest with torches and pitchforks. I just don't like it. And it's not their history. Like, I'll just speak from the other side of the equation here. Not taking up for Quebec. And I think this is where DJ is coming from too on this. I don't care about the Quebec Nordiques. Like, in terms of the Avs, I don't care. They're the Avalanche. When they arrived in Colorado, that's when their story began. And I was right there. I got caught up in it like everybody else around here did. And I've been covering the team ever since. That's when it started. Like Peter Stastny, terrific player. Goulet, all of these other names that are thrown out from the Quebec days, like, great, I can appreciate that, but that was a different franchise. I don't care if Nathan McKinnon is passing those guys on the all-time scoring list. It's a different scoring list. 2 sets of records. I'm sorry. I don't think it's good for either. But where DJ and I do disagree, I do think those sweaters look awesome. The Nordiques gear looks cool. But the Avalanche should not be wearing it. Just because it looks cool does not mean you should be wearing it. Avs and Maple Leafs tonight at 8 o'clock. And you can hear it right here on Extra Sports 1300. And on KVOR coming up in 10 minutes, you will hear Houston and Pittsburgh. The winner of that game will be going to New England. This coming in from Tony on Kyle Shanahan, the 49ers out coaching the Philadelphia Eagles staff. Vic Fangio is superior defensive coordinator. Head coaching was too much. Same applies to Vance Joseph. Hope he sticks it. Don't get enamored with the Rooney Rule and go with your strength. And I'll leave the Rooney Rule stuff alone. The point, though, is, and Mark Moses was on this show on Thursday, and he was talking about what wins today in the NFL. And there's no tried and true path that everyone can take and it's going to work 100% of the time. But there is a better success rate if you go an offensive-minded head coach, especially when you have a young quarterback, especially when you have a quarterback that needs coaching up. That is, he needs all the help he can get. A young quarterback needs all the help, all the knowledge, all the support that he could possibly get. So when you have, like, look at the Broncos, for instance. They have Sean Payton, but they also have Joe Lombardi, and they also have Davis Webb. Right? The most important person in the organization is an offensive-minded guy, and he's got quality offensive minds on his staff. And then Vance does the defense thing. If you're going to hire a defensive coach, then my next question is, okay, who's going to be your offensive coordinator? Who's going to be coaching up the quarterbacks? And far more often than not, I know defense wins championships. And help me if the Denver Broncos pull this thing off and on the string, and Bo Nix doesn't raise his game, and it's just sheer on the defensive effort from the Denver Broncos that they win the Super Bowl again. Because I'm going to have a hard time arguing with you. I'm going to be arguing all day with you the Monday after the Super Bowl about what wins championships. In the more general sense, again, there are exceptions to every rule, but in the more general sense, offense beats defense. And defensive-minded head coaches do not give you a better chance of being successful as a franchise, especially Cleveland, Tennessee, Vegas, if you have young quarterbacks. Look at what happened in Washington. Just 1 year after Washington, darlings of the league, Jaden Daniels, MVP candidate, all this kind of stuff. Cliff Kingsbury got fired. And the bottom fell out of Washington. Give Dan Quinn his credit for that 1 year, but is he going to be able to sustain this thing? I don't know. Good text. Appreciate you tuning in. We'll have much more discussion. Catch me tonight on KKTV 11 News at 10. Talk to you tomorrow.